West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Good morning, West Hillians everywhere. My name is Anne, and it is my pleasure to be the first to greet you live in the hall and welcome you to West Hill United's August 24th, 2024 service. Wherever you are behind the camera, whether you're just waking up in Mountain Time or prepping your dinner in British Summertime or West African Standard Time, or here in the hall, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's good to all be together, sharing this Sunday. I personally feel gratitude in our congregation's commitment to make the globe a little smaller with our coming together each week in friendship and our shared values, especially in love. It is something I did not envision nor knew was possible when I first came to West Hill 18 years ago. And I hope that it's something that I never take for granted. So now is probably a good time for us to say hello to each other. So those on Zoom can wave to everyone in the hall, and those in the hall can wave to everyone on Zoom. Hello, everyone, and it's lovely to be together. Today, Joe is continuing the series, What is Wisdom?, with our focus on openness. Together, we'll explore how opening our minds and our heart can deepen our understanding of the world around us, and how that openness can guide us toward living a wiser, kinder, and more loving life. I don't want to take your thunder away from you, Joe, but I smiled when I read the posted quote from Thomas Robert Dewar, and I'm sure everybody else did too. Minds are like parachutes. They only function when they're open. So with that, I'm looking forward to Joe's help in opening my mind and opening my parachute and helping me from not crashing. And now it's my pleasure to bring the land acknowledgement, and I'd like to thank Ruth Gill for putting these words together. I think that they are relevant no matter from which lands you are reciting them from. We are all treaty people means that people, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, have a shared responsibility and shared benefit from the treaties signed between Indigenous peoples and government. While the phrase emphasizes the importance of these treaties in shaping society, it also acknowledges the ongoing struggle for their full implementation and the need for reconciliation. This reading is from Kendra Cherry. It's an extract from How to Be Open-Minded and Why It Matters. Being open-minded means embracing new ideas, experiences, perspectives. It can widen your world, especially when it challenges your old ways of thinking and doing things. It's not just about being tolerant of opposing ideas, it's about staying curious and adaptable in an ever-changing world. It allows you to gracefully manage relationships, make accurate decisions, and learn new things that can help you grow as a person. Offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light.
Good morning again. It's interesting. The view that was just shown, I could see myself in the room there. I am in a special place this morning. If you notice, I'm going to have a little bit of a different background here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this place in just a moment. Uh, I wasn't sure if I was going to still be in this place though today. And so yesterday when I was here, I actually shot a video of me giving this week's perspective. So in just a second, Aiden is going to play that video of this week's perspective, and then I'll come back on the screen and we'll have a time of reflection together. Aiden?
Hello, West Hill. If you can tell, I am in a little bit different of a location. I am at one of my favorite places. This morning, I kind of want to tell you how I arrived to this place. I want to tell you a little bit of the story behind the story. We've been in a series of what is wisdom. And one of the key things in wisdom is to be open to new experiences. And because I was open in my life to some new experiences, it led me to one of my favorite places, the place I'm in now. And then I'm going to share in this story how eventually this place actually led me to West Hill. And then from there, we're going to talk about being open to new experiences, what helps us be open, and what can be roadblocks to us being open. So first, how did I get to this spot? When I was a teenager, I lived with a couple different families. And, as you could guess, that was somewhat of a harder time in my life. That eventually led me out to the state of Kansas, in which I lived with my aunt and uncle. And I loved it in Kansas. You might be thinking, Kansas? What's in Kansas? And the answer is nothing, actually. They actually had a joke there in Kansas that they would say, Kansas, the only state where you can watch your dog run away for 2 days straight. And it's kind of true. In fact, when I first moved there, I ran into some friends and met some friends, and they said, hey, would you want to go sledding? And I thought, where? Is there any hill? And they said, no, we know this big hill. And I said, okay. And they showed me this hill, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was probably no more than 15 feet. But it was still blast. I loved Kansas. I met so many great people, formed so many great relationships. And I was able to spend a couple years out there, and it was a truly instrumental time in my life. But then high school ended. Where do I go from there? And there's part of me that didn't want to go anywhere else because I had searched so long and so hard for a community. And that's what I found. I lived with different families, and then I'd moved there, and just not just the family that I was with, but the people, the friendships I had made. But as you know, in high school, after you graduate, a lot of people go to different areas, to different, to college or into the trades, or they move here and they move there. See, what's interesting at that time is I actually felt that I should move to Ohio. There's a college that I knew of here in Ohio, and I had a feeling that should be the next step for me. I was somewhat open to it, but not enough. And the reason why I say not enough is because I ultimately chose not to go to that college. Well, at least ultimately by a year and a half, I should say. For a year and a half, I said, no, I want to stay here. I want to hold on. I want to hold on to what I have. And what I eventually found is I can't. Things change. That's one of the guarantees of life. Things change. I mean, I think about even the trees around me right now and how here soon their colors will change. Everything is always in flux. It's always changing. Eventually, though, after a year and a half, I said, all right, I think this is a step that I should take. So I packed up my few possessions that I had. And I was open to this new experience. I didn't know what it would entail moving to Ohio. But I packed up my little car. In fact, when I decided to move, I didn't even have a car. And I had a friend drive me around, and I found a car, if I recall right, for $600 they were asking. And I said, it's a bit much. Could we do $550? And they realized this guy needs it more than we do. And I paid $550 for this car, and I thought, I think that it can get me to Ohio, but I'm not certain. And it did. And it got me here. And then, right away at my school, I had someone said, hey, I know of this camp, and you should come work here. I thought, all right, maybe I'll give that a try. You know, growing up, I always thought of camp as a fun place. I thought if I go and I work at this camp, I can work on my tan throughout the summer and do some pranks, you know, all those different types of fun camp stuff. And then I got to camp and I realized they actually want me to work. In fact, right here is the cabin that I used to lead, right behind the camera here. I'm staying here this week and oh, the memories. And I remember thinking, you know, working with the kids, like my first day, I could see the parking lot over that way and I could see my inexpensive car. And I thought I could get in this car and I could drive away. But I felt, Joe, there's something here that's more meaningful. Will you be open to it? And so I said, let's stay. Let's try it out. And after my first week of being here, I knew this is where I was supposed to be. I remember connecting with the kids who had gone through different struggles, just like I had in some different ways. The kids who hadn't gone through that, but still just connecting in so many different ways because everybody needs love and attention and care. And I knew this is where I should be. I'm so thankful that I was open to staying, that I didn't go and get my car and just drive away. I'm so thankful that I came to Ohio in the first place, that eventually I became open to that. It took some prying, of course. Well, you might be wondering, well, I said this would kind of lead to West Hill. How's that the case? Up top here, there's a hill and there's the athletic facilities. I had become the athletic director here at the camp and I would run different athletic programs throughout the summer. And then as I ran these athletic programs, I decided that I would always have a lesson that I would teach kids. I would always have a lesson for them. Whether it's just a minute or two. So for example, in the game of dodgeball, if you know, we were playing dodgeball that day, I would give a little lesson that life is a little bit like dodgeball. You want to stay away from things that can hurt you, you know, things that can kind of knock you out of the game so you can keep on playing the game and be with people and be fulfilled and have that enjoyment. I would just do these short little lessons. Well, then our children's minister was going to be away just for a week. And they said, Joe, we think that you should fill in as a children's minister. Now, our capacity at the camp was 220 campers. Ages 6 through 12 was generally the ages. And we usually met our capacity, 220 campers, a staff of 80 to 90. And I thought to myself, you want me to be the children's minister? Which meant that I had to get up in the auditorium every morning and give a talk. And I thought, no, I can do the basketball, I can do the dodgeball, I can do the athletics, but this is not for me. And they said, well, think about it. Basically, be open to it. So I did. I thought about it. And I said, Joe, you've been here a couple years. You know these kids, you know a lot of their stories, you know a lot of their struggles, you know a lot of the good in their life, the things that they're going through. And the truth is, Joe, you know that you've been connecting with them when you give these little lessons. Why couldn't you do that in a little bit longer of a format? Joe, will you be open to it? Oh, but I'd have to speak publicly. You know, not just in front of the 220 campers, ages 6 through 12, teaching a lesson to a 6-year-old as well as a 12-year-old at the same time. That's a challenge. But I would also have to talk in front of the other 80 staff members. What would they think of me? What do I have to say? I haven't been to seminary or I hadn't finished college yet. What do I have to say? But I was open to it. And I said, okay, 1 week. I'll do it for 1 week. I truly loved and enjoyed that 1 week. And I felt like I just made this connection that I could teach in a certain specific way. I started to develop characters that we would use for our different programs. And it really just resonated. And the camp then said, okay, so you've done 1 week. What if you do the rest of the summer? Oh, and also, what if you did it next summer as well? I said, wait a second, y'all tricked me a little bit here. This is supposed to be a 1 week thing. But I was open to it, and I knew right away, It's what I was supposed to do. And the truth is, when I started doing it, there was something about taking the lessons that I've learned and trying to help other people to teach and to really not even teach, to just share. Sometimes you don't have to be an expert. You just have to share your story, the things that have worked for you, the things that have worked for others, and to be able to communicate that in a loving, empathetic way. I'm so glad that I was open to, first off, even just coming to Ohio, to leaving what fit, what felt right, to leaving what was safe and trying something new. That wasn't just some wild try. It was an educated guess. A lot of times that's the best that we can do. But I'm so thankful that I chose to do that. And then it led me here. Well, how did that lead me to West Hill? Well, I continued doing, speaking to youth and to children and then occasionally to different adults. And I really enjoyed that. I spoke at different teen camps, and in fact, I was in the country of Denmark, as I've shared before, in 2016. And I gave a set of 10 talks there. And then I would go into these different towns, these different places in Denmark. And I knew the sociological studies and how they talked about how people see things a little bit differently in Denmark, but yet they have one of the highest life satisfactions of any country. I started thinking about how different people saw things in different ways. I said, Joe, will you be open? Will you be open to wearing their shoes a little bit, to putting yourself in their shoes, to try to understand a little bit more? Yes, the way, the things that you've been taught, the tribe, the tradition that you come from, it's nice. It's a coat and it's warm and it fits so nicely. But maybe there's other coats to try on. There's other things to experience. Will you be open to it? I said, okay. I did not want to. I don't think I can over-exaggerate that enough. I didn't want to because everything fit as I wanted it to. But I was open. It eventually took me down a couple-year process where eventually I had to say, I can't teach the things how I have been teaching them anymore. It meant giving up my career. I was a minister at that time. It meant, so many different things for me. And I took it in a hard way. It was a loss. It was a mourning. But at the same time, I felt so alive because I was open to so many different ways, so many different new ways of thinking. And I was hopeful for the future that I was about ready to embark on. I took some time trying to figure out, where do I want to go from here? But at a certain point, I knew I wanted to go back to teaching. I wanted to go back to community building. I mean, here at this camp, that's what it's all about. It's about community. I'm actually here for the 50-year reunion, and yesterday so many people got up, and the number one thing that was mentioned was family, community, being together. And I wanted to get back to that. And I knew it wouldn't be in maybe the same ways that I'd done it before. But I said, I want to be open. Instead of looking at things as, I got to try something new. This could be, not the most fun experience. There could be some pain in it. I've chosen to take approach of, there is a venture to be had. Right up here this way, there are some trails. I don't know where all the trails go. There's so many actually in this area. But when I go on some of them, I think about the adventure. See what's beyond the next curve. It's exciting. There's some beautiful things, some beautiful views of the lake along the way. There's a spring up this way. It's adventure. Open to new experiences. So then this past year, when I saw that a community, West Hill United, a values-based community, we're looking for a director, I thought, hey, maybe this could be a good fit. But it's in Toronto and you live in Toledo. maybe I could be open to some different ideas, and maybe they would be open to some different ideas. And then I started interviewing with West Hill, and I truly appreciated the openness that I felt from them, and not just the openness, the warmth, the love, the wisdom that I felt. And then I started thinking, you have these different thoughts, and I thought, Joe, I noticed it's a little bit of an older demographic. And of course you have these thoughts. Well, what about 10 years from now? What about 20 years from now? And immediately I thought, yeah, it's a little bit of an older demographic, but there's some awesome people a part of this. And it's people who have gone through some things, and they've been open to so many things in their past. The proof is in the pudding. And I thought they've been open to so many different things. I think there's a good chance that they will be open to new things. And that's what I'm excited about. I love the story of West Hill, and I truly mean that. I'm so thankful to be a part of things. And as I talk about being open to new things in the future, I want to be careful that we don't just get stuck in what we're going to do, because what we're doing right now is incredible. Every time, every Sunday, every time we get together through different events, I love what we're doing. But I'm also hopeful, and we're going to be getting into a series of hope, as that is one of the #1 criteria for well-being. But I'm hopeful because I know that the future is bright. And how can we have a good idea that the future is bright? Because of what's been done in the past. People being open to new experiences, new way of doing things, even when it hasn't been the most comfortable, even when it was difficult decisions. So as we've been in this series, What is Wisdom? This morning, actually I'm pre-recording this on Saturday, but today as you are watching this, how can we live a life of wisdom, being open? It's a venture. When I look at, once again, the story of West Hill, and then I look at my story and how it started, southern Kansas, rural southern Kansas, and how I felt that I needed to make a decision to leave what I knew, to leave what was good, to leave what was working, because I felt that there was something more. And then it led me eventually to here. And I love this place, and how I had to make decisions to try something new, to get up on a stage in front of nearly 300 people without any experience, even though I've been kind of working towards it in a way. And then eventually, to be open to new ways of thinking, and how that led me to West Hill, that excites me. So what is wisdom? Being open to new experiences. At this time, I'm actually going to turn it back from this recording to in person and live. And we're going to have a couple questions. We're going to talk about some things of how we can be more open, and also some roadblocks that can keep us from being open. West Hill, together, let's always be open to the new and exciting, and to the adventures that this life can take us on.
Hello, everybody, again. So yes, this morning I am here at the camp where I used to work for a number of years, a long time. I'm actually in my old office, and yeah, going down these different paths I've gone on while here, and just seeing at that time in my life how it's so good for me, but how it helped me grow, and how it helped me become a more open person. As I have studied some of the different research on the series that we're in, what is wisdom? One of the things that has come across in different models of what wisdom is this word openness. Openness to new experiences, openness to new ideas, being open minded. And on the screen here, there's going to be a quote, and this is from researcher from Australia, and so I had shared some of the stuff that this researcher has done before, and so they have what's called the More model of wisdom, and each letter MORE stands for a different pillar of wisdom, and the O in it stands for openness. The researcher says, and this is from one of their academic papers, they say wise individuals are open to beliefs and values that differ from their own, experiences that broaden their worldviews, and exploring inner experiences, even if they are complex, ambivalent, or undesirable. In concrete, difficult situations, their openness enables them to acknowledge, tolerate, and consider the divergent perspectives involved. And then, so this research paper, it had different sections for the different, the four main pillars of wisdom that they saw. And at the end of this section on openness, they say, in sum, wise individuals are curious about life and they're oriented towards learning and growth. And they're open to new ideas, perspectives, and inner and outer experiences. These general traits enable them to react to difficult situations in an understanding, oriented, and open minded way. If we want to be wise, we have to have an open mind. And so as I was thinking through, what can kind of help us have an open mind, as well as maybe what can be a roadblock to that, I came up with just a few different ideas here, and it's going to be on the screen as well. And this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of the things. Number one, humility. This was the first conversation that we had in this series, What is Wisdom? When we are humble, and I'm not going to read through every bullet point here, but when we are humble, we realize we don't have all the answers. I appreciate that West Hill calls it a perspective, because it's not saying that one person has all the truth. It's saying this is one perspective, and we can all share those different perspectives. So if we want to be open-minded, we have to start with humility. On the flip side of that, of course, when you don't have humility, let's say you have intellectual arrogance, you can stay to a narrow path and you might not ever see things in new and different ways. I was a while back, I was at a place this last month, I was at a restaurant and I was talking to this guy there and he said, oh, we were talking about different social issues. And he said, I already know what I think and I know I'm not changing. And I thought, and I said to him, I said, I'm very sad for you because I think that there's so much more and I don't have it. Even the things that I see now, I'm still growing in my understanding. The second thing, curiosity and intellectual flexibility. So curiosity, I have a bullet point here, asking questions, exploring possibilities, seeking those diverse perspectives. And this goes back to putting yourself in different people's shoes, having empathy, but being curious of how different people operate and the why behind things. And then, as Dan shared last week, challenging assumptions and biases. We can have confirmation bias. We want our way of thinking to work. Our brain, a fact that blows my mind is about my own mind. It's that our brain weighs 2% of our total body mass, but yet it takes up 20% of its energy, of the energy that we use. So it takes up 2% of the weight of our body, but yet it uses about 20% of our total energy. And what it likes to do, why I bring that up, it wants to take shortcuts. It doesn't want to use any more energy than it has to. That's a challenge that we're against. And so we have these different biases, confirmation bias or anchoring bias, with the thought that we first started with. This is the thought that we should always have. But if we truly want to feel alive, then we have to go against those biases. We have to realize them and to be curious. And that takes extra brain power, but it's oh so worth it. And then courage and tolerance of uncertainty. We have to be willing to face the unknown. I talked about the trails here at the camp. I talked about some of the paths I've been on and some of the paths that West Hill's been on. When you have to face difficult decisions, when you are trying to be open-minded, but the cost of being open-minded, when it can be costly, that's when it can get difficult. But without courage, you cannot be a loving person. You can't be a loving person without courage. It's impossible. And I would also argue you can't be wise. You have to have courage. If you want to be open-minded, because it's challenging, sometimes sacred, dearly beloved things. So to have courage. And the final thought that I wrote down here is empathy and social support. And to kind of explain this idea, I'm going to look at the flip side of it. Imagine that you are maybe a part of a community or a culture or a surrounding, a family where new ideas are not welcomed, that you must stick to a certain way of doing things. It's going to be a lot harder. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about West Hill. I think it's one of the things that makes what we do so valuable is that we try to aim for a supportive, open-minded, safe environment where we can share different ideas. We can talk about complex things, and we can do so in a supportive, loving way. And that encourages people to be open-minded, and it helps them live, more wise lives. And because we can live with greater wisdom, we can have a greater fulfillment in life, and we can share that with others as well. So West Hill again this morning, I encourage you. I know so many of you are very open-minded, and I encourage you to keep on that path. That is the way to be. That is the way to wisdom. So much research backs that up. At this time, as I thought about, we've broken up into groups at different times, but this morning I think we just need to sit with this. And so I'm going to ask that, and Scott, if you want to come forward and play, feel free to. But I'm just going to ask for a couple minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Scott, if maybe you want to play one song, that you just think about it. Think about maybe what stood out to you, or how you are being open-minded, or how you could be even more so. Aiden, if you want, you could put some of these bullet points I have on the screen. And so if you want to look at that and consider, am I being open-minded in this way, or am I not? And just let it, just sit with it for a few minutes. And then after those few minutes, we'll come back as we do a lot, and we'll open up the mic if people want to share what was on their mind.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.